Absolutely. Thank you so much, David, for having me here today. I'm really excited to have this audience. It's with a campus our size, it's really difficult to get engaged faculty all in one place. So I appreciate the offer and the opportunity to go over the Fulbright program. I know Fulbright is a pretty strong name in the academic community, and rightfully so. It's been around for a very long time. And so I'm excited that we have been named top 10 Fulbright producer last year again. We should find that out mid-February if we made the list again this year. Another noteworthy thing is that we were received the Hispanic Serving Institution HSI Fulbright honors. So another distinction given by the Department of State with the federal government. So we're really excited about that. Thanks, David. My name is Tracy Lacey, and feel free to email me at any time too. It's tlacey@tamu.edu if you want to learn more about Fulbright, but we'll kind of go through that at the end of today's presentation. Today we'll talk about the program overview, why you should consider Fulbright. We'll talk about your eligibility, types of awards, the application cycle, and some tips. And like David said, give you an opportunity to ask a few questions. The Fulbright program is in partnership with 160 countries worldwide. Each of these countries have their distinct Fulbright Commission. Fulbright offers passionate and accomplished faculty, administrators, artists, journalists, lawyers, and professionals from all backgrounds opportunities to study, teach, or conduct research abroad. Our mission is to foster a mutual understanding between nations and advance knowledge across communities and improve lives around the world. One thing that sets Fulbright apart is that it's not just an academic program. It's a diplomatic program. In 1946, Senator J. William Fulbright, along with his Congress, passed this into the flagship International Educational and Cultural Exchange Program. Right after World War II, they decided we should probably start focusing on making international ties so we don't get into another war. It's much harder to hate someone if you know them and have those ties within your community. So Fulbright is a bipartisan funded program, and we're really proud that we get support from all across the spectrum. It is sponsored by the U.S. Department of State, and funding is provided by the U.S. government and administered by the Institute of International Education. Funding also comes from the hosting countries, which makes it unique. So there's buy-in from the host and from the U.S. government. So it really does, it is a win-win for all involved. So the Fulbright program funds over 8,000 awards annually, but this isn't just the outbound Fulbright faculty programs. This is U.S. scholars and administrators, visiting scholars who are inbound, U.S. students, which are outbound to do their graduate programs, foreign students coming into the United States, and then language and teaching assistants. So it's they've grown and grown into a program that really benefits all areas of academics. So why Fulbright? Fulbright is designed to foster relationships that are real and lasting. Speaking with Dr. Reagan yesterday, the difference with this Fulbright was the amount of time that he was able to spend overseas. Really having that face-to-face created these partnerships that are growing and expanding. And also collaborations for publishing in your network, becoming more multicultural in the classroom and bringing that back to your Aggies here in Texas. You also serve as an ambassador for international exchange, gain the professional recognition as being identified as a Fulbright scholar. And there is a really active alumni network. Even here on campus, we have one of the largest alumni chapters in the nation. Fulbright is family friendly. About 60% of the awards provide dependent support, which means that they'll provide stipends for your child to go to school while you're abroad, which is a really cool opportunity for your family. 70% of applicants engage with IIE staff. This is huge. And this is really where my role kind of comes into Fulbright. I can kind of push and nudge to get answers that you might have problems getting or not really know who to contact. But the IIE staff in DC and New York are super responsive. We've created a really good relationship with them. And I'm really happy to say that when we reach out, they know that we're serious about it, and we really want to support our faculty to be Fulbrighters and to go abroad. You also have access to the Fulbright alumni as a resource. I'm seeing more and more prospective Fulbrights on campus reaching out to other Fulbrighters on campus as almost a mentor relationship to help them develop their proposal, their research, and figure out the best way to put them in the lead for these distinguished awards. So eligibility for the U.S. Scholar Program, first and foremost, for the outbound scholar, you must be a U.S. citizen. If you, we'll look at if you are not a U.S. citizen, what resources are available, because you could potentially be eligible for a Fulbright, but that really depends on how long you've been in the United States. Most foreign Fulbright commissions require residency at the time of application and usually 5 years previous to application. So it's really kind of tricky for people who are already in the United States to be eligible. Degree and experience, it really depends on the award. So terminal degree is the most frequent requirement. So a PhD or other terminal degree. If a master's degree or professional degree is the terminal degree for your field of study, then you are eligible. Although in professional and artistic experiences, for artists to study abroad, it's not as it depends on the award, but most time it's required, but you do have different requirements for different areas of expertise. And then compliance with the policies on a previous Fulbright Scholar Award, and then you have to have 2 years waiting between Fulbright U.S. Scholar Award and your next application. So if you do not, if you're not awarded the Fulbright 1 year, you are eligible to reapply, and we encourage that. It usually takes 2 to potentially 3 rounds of applications to be selected, and that's tweaking your presentation or your proposal with each application cycle. But if you are awarded a Fulbright, you do have to wait those 2 years in between to be awarded again. So if you are not a U.S. citizen, there are different, you would visit your country's Fulbright Commission website to see what their requirements are, or the Public Affairs Office in the U.S. Embassy. And I'm happy to help you navigate that if that is your situation. Faculty development leave is another area that is each institution that promotes the Fulbright program has to handle their faculty development leave or sabbatical in different ways, and whatever the system requires. We're fortunate enough to have a really active Dean of Faculty's office, and they are really happy to help you apply and navigate their processes. One area that they have made concessions for the Fulbright program is that if you apply for faculty FDL, you are awarded FDL, but you do not receive the Fulbright award, therefore you're not traveling, you can postpone that approved application. So this is it really based on the application cycle. It feels like you're putting the cart before the horse, because you're applying for leave before you're awarded anything. Well, our faculty, well, and it should be Faculty Affairs Office has made it to where you can postpone that and use it afterwards should you not get it. I believe that only would be the case once. If you apply a second time and you're not awarded, you would want to reapply for faculty development leave. It does change your insurance and other benefits if you are away on FDL, but Dr. Heather Wilkinson with Faculty Affairs will be speaking at our spring workshop, so we can kind of get into more of that as it relates to FDL at that time. So I'm really encouraging everyone here, if you want to learn more, to participate in that workshop that I'll talk about a little bit later. So looking at which award is right for you. So earlier we talked about there's a lot of different opportunities depending on where you're at in your career, on what type of award you would want to look for. So the Scholar Awards are primarily for faculty and professionals. We do have postdoc awards for early career and just finishing your postdoc, Distinguished Scholar Awards, and then the International Education Administrator Awards. Those awards are short-term visits for decision makers in institutions. So they are encouraged. I also encourage faculty to encourage their leadership to participate in those programs, just to kind of get everyone on the same page about how you want to develop your international strategies within your department. They do offer a flex option. A lot of times, if you're doing research based on a cycle, if you're studying systems or biology, or even taking survey data and then having to go back, this would allow you actually 2 trips out of country. It would pay for 2 round trip flights. So say you need to do a survey with the population in August, and then you need to go back and do it in December. The flex options available in 63 countries would allow you to travel to those areas multiple visits over a 2-year span. So it really offers that flexibility for STEM, for bioresearch, to be able to go back and forth if it wouldn't fall within that 12-month cycle. There's also the Fulbright Public Policy Internship and Global and Regional Awards. So you can really dive deep into the website, and most likely you will find an award that fits your area of expertise, where you're at in your career, and what your goals are for your particular research. So selecting the right award for you. Matching the country of interest, expertise, career profile, and proposal to the award description. IIE recommends this, but I want you to think of outside the box as far as what country do you need to be in for your research. For Dr. Reagan this afternoon, his was very clear. He needed to go to Japan. That's his area of study and composition of the music that he works on. But if you are determined to go to Australia, you are probably competing against a lot more other scholars than someone that wants to go to a developing country to really provide that country with support and resources to elevate their academics. So I always, and thinking about different experiences. So I encourage you to, yes, look at countries first, but really broaden that scope when you're looking through the awards catalog. Language ability, 9 out of 10 of the awards that Fulbright offers do not have a language requirement. Some do if they are research focused, just because you'll probably need to run your lab. You would need to be able to communicate with the people that are working in your lab with you and administrators within that the hosting institution. Project relevance to the host country and or institution. Thinking about national awards for research when you're looking at your proposal, typically you would focus on just the research part. Fulbright is different because you need to really look at it holistically and what can you offer that hosting institution and that country. So are you helping them to solve problems with infrastructure? Are you seeing medical emergencies in that region? And how will your research really benefit your hosting country and institution? Does that institution need faculty in certain areas where you can help develop curriculum and syllabi and leave a lasting mark on that host country? So it's the benefits to you. What are you going to gain out of it? But also in the back of your mind, when you're doing your proposal, thinking about how what you're doing will leave that lasting mark at your host institution. I think that's really what sets Fulbright apart from a lot of different federally funded awards, because it does have that undertone of diplomacy. Understanding the awards. So the new awards catalog has not come out yet. It will not come out until mid-February. So in about 4 weeks, you'll be able to see the approved awards. Most of the time, the awards go unchanged from year to year, but the hosting country is who dictates what is on the award based on what their needs are. So for example, this developing military leadership is, let's see, where is it at? It is not multi-country. It is a teaching and research. So you would have to, you would most likely have to teach 1 to 2 courses while doing your research. This is in Kosovo. A PhD is required. And then it is for professionals, and they've funded exactly 1. For some of the larger awards, you might see up to 15 recipients for that specific award. All of these awards are laid out in the same exact way. So if the award length is one of your variables that you can't budge on, if you are doing teaching, this would be a 1 semester. And if it's teaching and research, a summer program would most likely not be available because of that teaching aspect of it. So you can narrow down the awards by how many months you'd be eligible. And then also your award start period might be another indicator. If you're wanting to go in the spring and or in the fall, and this one is in January, that would eliminate that award from fitting into your goals and your needs. The award details will also include the requirements, the stipend and benefits, and the country, area, and overview, along with what is needed within your award packet to make you eligible for that particular award. So the application components, you will be required to do an application form, a project statement, resume, 2 letters of recommendation, language proficiency report if required, and a letter of invitation is not required for all awards, but I do highly recommend that you craft that award with a hosting institution. It would elevate your proposal to possibly getting on that top tier. And for the teaching awards that have that teaching aspect, you would be required to provide course outlines or syllabi, your reference list for research, and portfolio submissions for artists, architects, and journalists. And it could be a combination of all or a few of these components within that award, depending on what the hosting country is requiring at that time. The host institution. So in some instances, when the host country is really engaged with this award, they will often get institutions to fund portions of it as well. So if University of Sydney really wants to bring in faculty to do research on an endangered animal in Australia, they can be very specific on that award and say, okay, we will, as University of Sydney, supply housing. We will provide the lab space, administrative support for that researcher, and other benefits, in addition to what the country commission, the Fulbright Commission in that country, would provide. In those instances, you'll see a specific host institution or a list of host institutions that they would be required for you to partner with. This is usually for westernized countries, for larger countries. For smaller ones, they really have no preference on what institution you're partnering with. You just have to show that institutional tie, or we can reach out together to that Fulbright Commission, and the director of the Fulbright Commission can use their resources to help connect you with someone within that country. So say you want to go to Ghana, but you don't know anyone at an institution in Ghana, well, we can reach out together and start creating those partnerships and institutional ties so you can make your proposal that much stronger. The international office on your campus, that would be us, global engagement. We can also help you identify potential partners by looking at who we are already partnering with and kind of going that route to create those introductions to get that ball rolling. Also, the U.S. and Fulbright Scholar Directory, they do post every single Fulbrighter on their website, whether it's incoming or outgoing, and you can sort that by institution or country, the year that they participate on their Fulbright or other criteria, and provide you their email address so we can reach out together to that Fulbright alumni to help make those ties too. The letter of invitation. So this can be, I really encourage faculty to customize this based on what you're trying to do, what the needs of the institution are, and marry those two ideas together. So a lot of times I'll have the faculty write that letter for the partnering institution, and then they can tweak it saying that I am University of Sydney, I need X, Y, and Z because of A, B, and C, and this faculty member fits the bill perfectly. And you can tie those two together and really make a strong letter of invitation to show that you have that institutional support when you're in country. It should come from the person with whom you'll be collaborating. So a department head, a dean, or higher. Faculty, I think a letter of recommendation would be helpful from faculty, but I think you really need to show that leadership is going to support you while you're in country. And it does need to be on the host institution's letterhead. So this is perfect timing as far as the awards are concerned, because we're planting the seed that you can be a Fulbrighter early on in the application cycle. Applications open in early February, so start looking at your institutional ties, your country ties, looking at your research, your eligibility for FDL. There's a lot of different components that you can be looking at before you even go to the website and look at the award opportunities. I do encourage you, though, to start your application. Thankfully, this is all an online process now, and so you'll go to the Fulbright website and at IIE. You can start entering just your basic information and start creating that profile and start really browsing the catalog once the new application cycle begins in February. This is where you'll upload your all your documentation, and throughout the process of review and approvals, you can see it'll show you exactly where you're at in that process, which is really nice. It used to be you just packed it all in an envelope and hoped for the best. IIE does offer a ton of webinars, office hours, and application guidance. I really encourage you to take advantage of those webinars. They basically, any question you can have, they're going to answer it. And then also participating with our annual workshop in late February. So competition opens here right around the corner. September 15th is the application deadline. And then program staff conduct the technical reviews for completeness in September, make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. In October, they perform the U.S. peer review, which there are a ton of alumni that participate in this process, and they are subject matter experts. They will review and make the first cut on the proposals, and then send those to as recommendations to the Fulbright Foreign Scholarship Board between November and January. At this point, they've cut it down to probably 50% of the applicants. They send that pool of applicants and their proposals on to the Foreign Fulbright Commission, and then they make their decision off of those recommendations. And that's where between January and June, it seems like forever, because it is. Not all cultures and countries work on the same timeline as the United States as far as urgency. So sometimes you'll get an answer in January that you've been awarded and you have plenty of time to set up your travel arrangements and whatnot. Sometimes it's not till June, and we have people traveling in August. So that's kind of where that black hole of I don't know, because it's out of our hands, happens between that January and June 6-month mark. And then June moving forward, participants prepare for their departure. They notify their university, they get everything squared away, and really set a course for the next chapter of their career. But I really do encourage you all to go to the website. It's fulbrightscholars.org to learn more. And also, if you have a colleague that they might have said that they're eligible for FDL but don't really have an idea what they're gonna do for sabbatical, this is a perfect opportunity for them to get engaged and take on a project with their research and really find a new perspective from on their research by traveling to a different country. Another thing to note too is with the incoming scholar program, if traveling abroad at this time in your career is not feasible, there are so many programs to bring scholars on campus and then provide that globalization within your classroom or your department. And I'm happy to talk about those at a different time as well. You can reach out to me if you want to learn more about bringing scholars, or you can, and also potentially using it as a PhD pipeline for recruitment for your lab. Well, I see that that Marty just hopped on, and I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity to meet with Marty. All the way back in 2020, we had our first conversation about potentially doing a Fulbright, and he was able to show me his full presentation yesterday, and it's incredible the things that have happened for him in the last year because of the Fulbright program in regards to his research. He was not awarded the first year, but used all the resources and really tweaked his proposal and was awarded for the 22-23 travel season to Japan. And he is he's in the School of Performance, Visualization and Fine Art. So Marty, thank you so much for joining us today. And we wanted to give the faculty on today an opportunity to to hear kind of your story, your Fulbright story, and how they can potentially take advantage of Fulbright to spearhead their research, create partnerships overseas, and think about their area of expertise with a little different light.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much, Tracy, for inviting me to speak about my experience as a Fulbright scholar. And I just want to say that any of you who are interested in learning more information about the program, the application process, or anything at all, please feel free to reach out to me personally. I'm happy to spend time with you. So in the short time that we have today, I just want to very briefly talk about what I did while I was in Japan this past year. You probably know that the Fulbright U.S. Scholar Award has 3 categories. There is research only, teaching only, and then there's research and teaching. I was awarded the 3rd category, research and teaching. And I found out during my time here that I was the only one in my category in the United States awarded the grant for last grant cycle in Japan for this particular category. So my research project was entitled Soundscapes of Japan from Past to Present. It was a monograph project where the goal was to conduct extensive field work to learn about Japan's performing arts from 7th century to the present day. And the idea was to address a need in the field for a source to be used for courses in Japanese music, theater, and other modern genres of Japanese performance. Special attention, I failed to mention, I'm actually a composer and an ethnomusicologist. I've had a fairly active career in Japan as a composer over the past 2 decades. I specialize in working with traditional Japanese instruments. I've actually composed over 90 works for Japanese instruments. And so I'm really kind of keyed into the contemporary music scene in Japan. And so one of the major chapters in this book deals with Japanese music in the diaspora. That is how Japanese music has spread beyond Japan's shores within the past 50 years. So as I mentioned, I also had teaching affiliation at two schools. One was Senzoku Gakuen College of Music, the Research Institute for Contemporary Music, where I was in charge of 2 courses on Saturday afternoons. One was entitled Researching Repertoire of Contemporary Japanese Music, and the other was a Japanese Traditional Instruments Ensemble, where I was basically coaching and conducting the students and members of society who had joined the ensemble to work on music for public performance. Also, once a month, I commuted to Kyoto to conduct library and archival research at the Kyoto University of Fine Arts, the Research Institute for Japanese Music. During my time, I also expanded my network of colleagues, which led to unofficial affiliation with Osaka University, which I will talk about in a bit. So Senzoku Gakuen is located southwest of Tokyo, about half an hour from the center of the city. And while I was there, I gave lectures about my own musical works, which I believe was quite stimulating for the students because they had never met a non-Japanese like me who's been so active in the field. So I think this was a good opportunity for them. Also, I spoke, as I mentioned before, since it was a focus of my research about Japanese music in the diaspora, with the undergraduate students. And I have to say they were very surprised. They had no idea that Japanese music was that, well known outside of Japan. So this is also a great opportunity for them. This is a photograph taken on a typical Saturday afternoon in the Traditional Instruments Ensemble. I'm in the back in the brown jacket, if you can see. They worked on, throughout the year, 2 large works of mine. One was entitled One Spring Day. This was for their spring concert in March. And another one was Summer Dances, which was performed, not surprisingly, in the summer in July. While I was there, I met a shamisen player. This is a 3-stringed plucked lute. His name is Nozawa Tetsuya, and in the time that I was there, he was an absolute maverick for my music, basically performing every single piece that I have composed for shamisen within the past 20 years. I mean, basically every single week he was performing my music somewhere. And these are examples of some of the flyers that he created to promote my works. So this was an unexpected, benefit of being affiliated with a research institute. As you can expect, I was the only foreigner in residence, so Nozawa was very enthusiastic about me being there. As I mentioned, I also went to Kyoto once a month to conduct library and archival research at the Research Institute for Japanese Traditional Music. I also participated in seminars and workshops while I was there. One of my colleagues who I met at a conference in Portugal in the summer of 2022, when she found out I was going to be in Japan for the entire year, she invited me to Osaka, first starting in October, and it went so well, this workshop and talk that I gave in the International Studies program, that she invited me back no less than half a dozen times throughout the year. So every time I went back to Kyoto, it was paired up with a lecture at Osaka University. This professor was really great because she asked the students to respond to my visit immediately, in Japanese, of course, but I translated into English. This is an example of the types of comments that the students would give after my talk. I'm actually a performer of a traditional Japanese instrument known as the shakuhachi, which is the Japanese bamboo flute. And so I brought the shakuhachi into the class and played for them. And as a homework assignment, the professor made her students write haiku. This is a type of poetic form using 5-7-5 syllable construction. And so this is an example of some of the poems that the students wrote in response to my presentation. And because I visited the university over half a dozen times, I literally have hundreds of these haiku that are now part of my teaching portfolio. So while I was there, it was very, very busy. I found it challenging sometimes to balance my personal life along with scholarly research and fieldwork. At first, I found myself overwhelmed with invitations as a Fulbright scholar to go out and especially because Japan had just opened up, restrictions were lifted and a lot of concerts were going on. So I found myself in September, October, for example, going out as often as 5 or 6 times a week. And eventually I had to start saying no to things. But I do have to say there were opportunities that came up due to my status of Fulbright scholar that led to incredible research opportunities, what I call healthy distractions. And one of them was actually an opportunity to meet the last living Ichigenkin. This is the one-stringed Japanese zither, Grandmaster Isumi Negishi, who was absolutely thrilled that when she found out I was writing a book and allowed me to interview her for the book. It was very good that I did so because she passed away unexpectedly of cancer this past May. So I had 6 months to get to know her. So this is an opportunity where actually healthy distractions led to unexpected research opportunities. As I said, it was a great time to be in Japan. There was renewed passion for attending live music events. The first concert I gave in October was at 1:30 in the afternoon on a Friday, and 600 people came to fill a hall that had a capacity of 700. So with the restrictions lifted, many people were excited to share new work. And so as a result, I was able to conduct face-to-face interviews with living practitioners. I met with local performers to practice ensemble music, and I studied my instrument, the shakuhachi, privately with a shakuhachi master, Zenyoji Keisuke, as well as music composition lessons with a very famous composer called Tokuhide Nimi. This slide is a little bit particular to Japan, but I wanted to show you nevertheless because some of you living in a foreign country might, occasionally experience some kind of bias. I did experience that in my daily life in Japan. I tried to learn to shrug it off, and instead of taking it personally, like this is happening to me because I'm not Japanese or I'm American, I just said, I'm living in Tokyo, a city with 21 million people. Not everyone has time to be friendly to me and share a cup of coffee. So I tried to learn not to take things personally and just kind of move on. Japan, like many countries in Asia, for those of you who are thinking about Fulbright to Asia, it's very important to make personal introductions and to network. Having name cards with you is really important. I made sure that was one of the first things I did when I get in Japan. I have a healthy stock of cards with me at all times. I also kept a journal and scrapbook of all of my activities, whether it was train tickets or bus tickets or concerts or admission fees to museums. Everything went into the scrapbook, and I recorded, my daily adventures in there, partly for personal use, but also to reflect upon my research project. Fulbright will also require you to submit monthly reports on your research. And so I also drew upon those official reports that I submitted to Fulbright when I was working on my journal and scrapbook. I did so many things in Japan, it's really hard for me to even begin, but I'm just going to just talk about 2 or 3 things in particular that were research highlights for me. One of them was a trip that I took to Kushido, which is this island, a city in eastern Hokkaido, the furthest northern island in Japan. And I visited in the winter, which was very, very cold. The main purpose was to meet a research collaborator. But while I was there, I also took a pilgrimage to see the endangered red-crowned cranes in the nearby Kushido marshlands. And these are, as I mentioned, endangered species. They mate actually in the winter. And so this is a video that I took while I was there of the cranes. And I know it might not seem related to research, but just bear with me because I want to show you the connection in just a moment. It's almost difficult to express in words how profound this moment was for me. The reason was because I've been working with Japanese music and instruments for over 20 years, and in the early days, my teachers would say to me, "Oh, there's a very deep connection between Japanese music and nature." And they would, play some sound on an instrument and say, "See, doesn't that sound like the wind?" And I would just kind of shrug it off and pretend that I knew what they were talking about. It was all very abstract for me. But a few years ago, I discovered this piece called Tsuno no Sugimori, the nesting of the cranes. And in this piece, there is an extended technique that is done as a kind of glottal stop in the throat. I guess the Western equivalent on a flute would be a flutter tongue, but it is said that this piece is based upon the mating sounds of the cranes that you just heard. And it is made the same way that the cranes make the sound with their throats. So just give a listen so you can see what I mean here. Right here. So the reason why this was a moment of absolute catharsis for me is because I teach courses in traditional Japanese music here at A&M. And before I went on my Fulbright, I would say things to the students like, yes, Japanese music is related to nature without having any concrete examples or evidence. And now when I teach my course, I can show these videos and the sound samples that I took of these cranes imitating the sound that is then we can find in the traditional repertoire, right? So this is just kind of an unexpected, trip that I took that has resulted in material that is now part of my monograph, as well as enhancing my teaching. I went back to Kushido in July to give a talk at the University of Hokkaido Kushido branch to undergraduate students who are planning to become teachers, and presented ways that they can introduce the work of Miyagi Michio to elementary school students to encourage the appreciation and understanding of Japanese music. And the local newspaper, when they got wind of this, came and did an interview and photographs of me. This was a totally unexpected benefit of being a Fulbright fellow. I didn't realize this even existed until after I went to Japan. But at the orientation, they told us that for Fulbright fellows who are in the East Asian Pacific region, there's a program called the East Asian Pacific RTP program, which basically, if you apply and have an invitation from a host institution, they give you funding to go to a host institution for educational exchange and research collaborations. I'll be honest, I reached out to the University of Sydney almost cold. Somebody in the composition department there named Even Zavada, and I just said, I'm a Fulbright fellow in Japan. This is what my research is. I see that there are correspondences and similarities between our research interests. Would you be interested in hosting me? All I need is a letter of introduction, and if I'm awarded the grant, the Fulbright actually pays me. He was absolutely thrilled. He wrote a letter for me. He did some research about my work. He wrote a letter of invitation. I got the award, and I went to Sydney for 10 days, where I met with 15 undergraduate and graduate student composers, gave 2 lectures attended by over 200 faculty and students, conducted field research and interviews on Japanese music in Australia, and attended various concerts. So this was an unexpected benefit, but again, being a Fulbright fellow can open up doors. Another research highlight, again unexpected, this is something I found out once I was there. There's a Japanese theatrical genre known as No, which is an austere theatrical form performed with masks like this. And I took a mask making workshop. Over 3 weeks, I carved by hand, with the help of a master, from a single piece of cypress wood, this No mask. And this is the progress day by day of what I created. And then at the end of the workshop, there were 5 or 6 of us in the workshop. We all exhibited our work at a national No theater, and various people came to attend the exhibition. So you can be sure I use this object of material culture in my class now when I teach about No theater. In August, I was featured in the Hogaku Journal, which is a magazine for Japanese music. It was the first time in the history of this magazine that a non-Japanese was featured. They did nice photography on the cover. Then there was a 3-page spread inside with an interview. As a result of that, a concert I gave 4 days before I left for the United States was sold out. And it was this concert actually was co-sponsored by the American Embassy in Tokyo, and I presented my works for Japanese instruments on this concert. So in summary, if I were to come up with one word to summarize my experience in Japan, it would be affirming. You know, I've been doing work in Japan for 20, 25 years now, but never I was able to go into this much depth as a Fulbright fellow, living there day by day. I composed 8 new works, over 90 minutes of music, which performed in prestigious venues. Over 40 performances of my music were done while I was there. I worked consistently with both a shakuhachi teacher as well as a composition teacher. I had an active schedule of guest lecturers, not only at my host institutions, but from other institutions who, knowing my Fulbright status, asked me to come and give guest lectures. I have now very healthy collaborative relationships, both with the University of Hokkaido in Kushido, as well as the University of Sydney. During this year in Japan, I deepened my knowledge and understanding of traditional Japanese performing arts in ways I never could imagine. Photos and video footage I took as well as material culture that I gained while I was there will enhance my courses at A&M for years to come. One of my hobbies is collecting Japanese woodblock prints, and I collected over 24 new prints that I use as educational materials in my class, including this incredible woodblock print, which was done by Seka Kamisaka, who is considered the founder of modern Japanese design. This woodblock print was printed on the original blocks bequeathed to the publisher by the artist. I attended many educational workshops, not only on Japanese aesthetics and music, but also cultural workshops. And through my apartment management company, I attended community building events that helped me develop my network of colleagues. As I said early in autumn in particular, which is concert season time, I was attending 5 or 6 concerts a week, almost too much, overstimulating. Other highlights included, as you saw, obtaining footage of the mating dance of the red-crowned cranes. I stayed overnight in a temple in Mount Koya, which is the center of Shingon Buddhism, to experience a day in the life of a Buddhist monk, which I now share that experience with my students. I conducted fieldwork interviews with various practitioners and composers in the contemporary music scene, which have made my way into my monograph. And the last thing I did was I laid the groundwork to prepare for hosting the next World Shakuhachi Festival from April 16th to 20th, right here in College Station at Texas A&M University. This is a festival that can be traced back to 1998, first in Boulder, Colorado, then in New York, Tokyo, London, Kyoto, and Sydney. And now to that group of cities, College Station will be added. And I'm very happy to say I was appointed artistic director and was able to lay the groundwork for this festival while I was in Japan. And I look forward to bringing this to College Station in April of 2025. As a Fulbright scholar, I'm looking forward to continue to use, to be a cultural ambassador and to use my various musical activities as a bridge to link various cultures. And if there's anything I can do at this point to answer, to help you understand the application process or other benefits awarded, available to you as a Fulbright scholar, please let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much, Marty. I really appreciate you coming and talking to us about your experience. I think it's a lot, like your experience was incredible, and there's so many other stories about Texas A&M Fulbrighters really elevating Texas A&M and College Station as a whole. So we appreciate you coming here today. I do want to say too that if you're working in STEM, or if you don't feel like your research really, like you don't see Fulbright working for you, it can. So in Marty's situation, it was culturally based. In many situations, or in your field of expertise, it might not be culturally based, but I really encourage you to look at the different opportunities and gaining that different perspective and a worldview on what your research is all about. So I'm happy to meet at a later time. There's a couple questions in here, but I do want to let you all know about a couple upcoming events. We do have the annual Fulbright workshop. The annual Fulbright workshop and reception is coming up in late February. I'm still locking in a venue, but it should be February 28th from 3 to 5. And then where we can answer really specific questions, we'll have the Faculty Affairs Office in there to answer questions and some more Fulbright perspectives. And then we will have a reception to follow, and that is to honor the Fulbrighters that just came back, like Dr. Reagan and others, and also to create those networking opportunities and spark those conversations. Additionally, Dr. Poju Chen, she is not a Texas A&M Fulbrighter, but she is a Texas A&M faculty, and she did do 2 Fulbrights, one in 2012 and one in 2015. And she's doing she's hosting a forum and lunch on January 26th at 1 p.m. with a research presentation to follow from 1 to 3 p.m. in Ag and Life Sciences building. And if you'd like to attend that, it is lunch, so you would need to RSVP and make sure to attend that if you do, and email to Dr. Chen. I've included her email address here, but I'll throw it into the chat as well. And then also, if you'd like to set up a one-on-one like Marty and I did back in 2020, email me at tlacey@tamu.edu and we can make that happen.